How old are you?
I am 36 years old.
What does it feel like to be 36?
So great. I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
I feel like I'm so aware of myself than every year that I get older. And, I'm as old as I've ever been. So I feel like I'm the most aware right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is something that when you were younger you put a lot of importance on, and as you got older you realized wasn't as important, wasn't worth worrying about?
I feel like a lot of what my focus was when I was younger is other people's opinions. And now all I really care about is I respond to these opinions and obviously only like the circle of my loved ones.
Basically, the circle is getting smaller of whose
Sure.
opinion matters.
Exactly. So whose opinion matters, whose doesn't, but actually also how much of their opinion matters.
Right.
Yeah.
Was there something that happened in your life that changed changed how you thought about it and the importance that it had?
I feel like I've lived so many lives, and in those so many lives, I've always come out learning something more. What I've also realized is every life that I've lived in those lives, one thing was in common is that I should have just listened to my intuition and I shouldn't have considered so many opinions and I shouldn't have cared for so much. And it should have just been about what really mattered, not at that point in time, but possibly in the many years to come.
Like, you think you missed out on a few things because of that?
I don't think I missed out on a few things. I think I did the opposite. I think I did too much.
Uh,
Yeah. And I could have slowed down, but then I don't see myself slow down. So it's interesting because I also don't really see taking another path per se. I think I needed to go through what I needed to go through, and then I'm a byproduct of all of that today.
what is an example of that? If you could share maybe a story or an example that comes to mind.
I grew up, I'm Indian, and generally just being part of an Indian household, and this is not just mine, but generically most, we're taught so much about how we should publicly present ourselves, and then it becomes a part of your upbringing, and then you sort of hold onto this idea everywhere you go, whether it's your work, whether it's the way you perceive different aspects of your life. And so much of it was like understanding that community is great, but you also, bring out the best in you and not necessarily always, the one that makes you feel nervous or makes you feel less of yourself or makes you feel like you're not doing something right. So much of my 20s, let's say, was about doing things for others' satisfaction and getting the gratification of, let's say, who you thought people mattered. But actually, it came down to the fact that we've all got such a different path to hold, and everyone's got an interesting story that they're dealing with. And it was just a part of the evolution of so many little parts of my life.
So you're talking like the pressures that come from your family, pressures externally that.
This is the interesting part, right? The pressure that comes from your family, you think it comes from your family, but actually it's generational. They had that pressure because they then had that pressure from their family. And as I get older, I realize it's not direct. It's just the evolution of where we came from and our ancestry. And then understanding the root cause was not just the direct root cause you thought it was, but actually years of and generations of culture passed down. You realize that they had no choice. They are the way they are, and somewhere, if you've identified what works and what doesn't, maybe it's your responsibility to change that change you want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say a lot of kids hold grudges towards their parents for a long time.
Yeah.
The way the parents raised them, the way they
Correct.
treated them. But
Yeah.
I've learned that, well, it's obvious, but it's something I think we need to learn and understand is your parents are just people that are older than you. We decided to have kids. They never
Because
had
that
kids
was the right
before.
thing to do then.
Yeah, and they didn't have any instruction manual.
In
right?
fact, the opposite, right? They decided to have kids, and it was their life to raise their children the way they were raised, and it was told to them by their family and parents, that's the next move, and there's no choice, there's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
Either you do it or you don't. If you don't do it, you're not going to do life right. And there was no middle ground. we should have so much gratitude for the choices we get today. Every choice is a privilege. And realizing that has been something I can agree with more and more as I get older.
For those who are just meeting you for the first time, what do we need to know about your childhood in order to understand the version of you that we are listening to today?
I say the way I describe myself, I'm a Capricorn. I know people who are Capricorns that are associated with their Capricorns will know what that means. I'm also the oldest daughter, not just between me and my blood sibling, but amongst all my cousins from both sides. So, and I'm, the oldest daughter. And so I've got like the older daughter syndrome. I'm a Capricorn. I saw my parents start their own business at 11, when I was 11 years old, to build it to what they've grown it to today, which is so phenomenal. And I remember I saw them go from like 0 to 100. And I feel like that fire was and then influenced in me. I am a byproduct of both my parents. I have the emotional side and the nurturing aspect of my mother. I have the hustle and the concept of being able to relate to people through my father. And I understand that more and more as I get older now. We are so much of our genetics, as much as we, sometimes deny it. And so all of that included, as well as growing up in Hong Kong, where it's a very vibrant city. It's a very active city. So much going on. It kind of is inbuilt that you become this very forced. You become like a force of nature. You want to be great at many things. You want to be cultured at many things. You want to associate yourself with a lot more. And I feel like, speed is not second nature to us. Like, we are such a fast-paced city that we become such fast-paced people in the way we operate. And then in terms of young Payal is very, things that like personalities that I still see today is someone who's goofy, someone who loves to have a good laugh, and someone who like loves hanging out with their friends. And I want to be involved in all of my friends' big moments. I feel very sad when I'm not there for a major stepping stone of their life. I think I've just had that all over from when I was young to now. Yeah. So yeah, the hustle, the fast pace, also religious. I mean, I come from a very religious family. So a lot of that I grew up doing because it was the right thing to do as part of being part of my family. And then now, with the help of more education, as well as things like AI, every religious activity I do is has so much more meaning behind it. There's so much more, I'm questioning everything much more and doing it with more intention.
So you're close with your parents?
Very, yeah, super close, especially my mother. Yeah.
What is advice that your parents, or maybe your mother, if you want to dial in on that, what advice they've given you since you were young that has stuck with you still to this point?
My mother is definitely the person that's made me, I would think, mentally strong today. I feel like she inspires me every day. She wears so many hats, and I think now it just feels like, oh, wearing so many hats as a woman is a given, because I've seen my mother do it so much. She's a businesswoman. She's like obsessed with stocks. She's like the Wolf of Wall Street of Hong Kong. Like, she's trading 24/7. But then she's this fabulously dressed woman, like loves jewelry, loves clothing, but then is so close to her sisters, takes care of her mother, takes care of her in-laws, takes care of my entire family. And she just does it all so seamlessly, and, she looks great. So, she's definitely sets a standard in many ways. And also just the balance between culture and community, and then also the idea of being in a modern society like Hong Kong as well. It's a nice balance. One thing I always remember is, when I was 17, I went on we went on a high school grad trip. And I had a really major accident. Like, I want to say like the doctors were saying 30% you'll be able to not walk again.
Wow.
I know it doesn't seem like a lot today, but when you're on a hospital bed and your doctor says if this and this goes wrong, there's a 30% chance you won't be able to walk again. And then I went from that to walking stick to then, and I was supposed to go to university that same year after the summer. And everyone around me, everyone around her advised her that I should take a gap year and just recover because it was such a major injury. She said to everyone, she's not taking a gap year. She's going to go to university in a walking stick. And I remember my first year of university, my first semester, not only did I go to university in my crutches, which imagine this is like the start of your new life and you're meeting a whole new era of people and people obviously are making assumptions as they are. She pushed me to do that. And I don't know if it was the right or wrong decision, but again, what doesn't kill you only makes you hotter.
Hotter. Okay, I haven't heard that one before. What did that teach you though? Like obviously if this example is stuck with you, not to age you, but it's almost 20 years since that point. If this example is stuck with you for 20 years, what was the lesson you've extracted from that?
The lesson I extracted is recovery is a mindset as much as it is physical.
Yeah.
You can recover from something physical probably faster than you can recover mentally sometimes. Yeah. And that both of those need equal amounts of attention. A lot of people go to physiotherapy, but then don't actually come out of that trauma long-term mentally. And your fascia is something that holds on to that grudge sometimes. And so doing that inner work is super important. What that experience in itself taught me is people will stare. It's okay. People will move on. I don't think anyone remembers me walking into that university with crutches. In fact, they remember me doing possibly other things in my second and third year. Maybe my work, maybe a cool event I hosted. Yeah. And, life goes on. Yeah. And you just honestly, your mind is so much stronger than you think it is. You've just got to learn to find a way to dive into that emotion.
Yeah, I think there's an initial barrier of restraint from your mind with anything that's uncomfortable, but it's there's so much more beyond that point, right?
Restraint is exactly like you said it. Restraint is just that middle. It's just that middle hurdle, and you've got to practice, right? Nothing comes overnight. People seem to give up on their mental aspect much faster than they do physically, because physical is such an outer experience, whereas mental is something so much to do with inner work. But in the long run, that's what's going to sustain you, even physically.
Yeah. Same question for people who first time that they're watching you. What do you do for a living? How do you describe that?
What do I do for a living? If I put it into a general sense of things, I'm a designer. I am a founder. I am a creator. I am known for my fine jewelry businesses, brands, for the larger part of my life. I then delve into lots of tech and fashion and marketing businesses and startups that I get associated with, or their long or short-term projects. I love innovation and tech as much as I love culture and religion. And so I try to see where the balance is between the two. And my favorite role these days is being a favorite aunt to my two best friends who gave birth 6 months apart.
Wow.
Well, actually, a lot of my great girlfriends gave birth to lots of amazing babies that I hold dear to my heart, but especially that.
Okay, so from what I understand from Hong Kong, it feels very much similar culture-wise to like a Singapore, a New York, even where I grew up in Montreal, where it's very corporate. It seems very corporate, and people just rush into investment banking or consulting or those very typical jobs.
Yeah.
And you said you've been running your company
for almost 14 years. 14 yeah. Years? Well, I started off with another company, gaining some experience. Then I moved into being a wholesaler. Then I moved into being recognized more and more for my designs, which then turned into a brand. And then now, if I look at it, it's that aspect is running, but I'm more focused on possibly launching, I think, just a very easy to go to diamond jewelry e-commerce brand.
Okay. But it's against the norm of what people typically do. Out of college, would you say?
I studied architecture, so I felt like business just came second nature to me.
Yeah.
I knew whatever I did, I would need it to be a successful business. So even though it's jewelry, I want it to be, commercially doing well too.
Yeah.
And then other aspects. And it's in my world, it wasn't the most typical route. It was just that the way I did it was not typical, but in the general scheme of things, it's a big trading business, right? Yeah.
A lot of people, they get, so basically kind of the mission of Sprout is there's so many people that work in jobs and they live lives that they are not, when they get 80 to be 80 years old and they look back on life, they won't be fulfilled with. And we get pressured because we don't know who we are. We don't know what we want. We get pressured down a path that we might not enjoy. And so I always like talking to people who feels like they followed their conviction. Like you could have easily, even though your parents showed you a way of life that maybe most parents don't show their kids, whether on purpose or not, you still could have gotten sucked into a path that
Correct.
you're not interested in. So I'm curious, or maybe you have friends that work in jobs that they might, maybe not, maybe you've created a world where you don't have those people
No, of course,
directly, but
there's too many people in the world to not have seeing people do things that they don't necessarily enjoy.
yeah.
I think it shows up. I think it shows up sooner than you think. You can physically feel it. You can mentally see it. So, I mean, my advice for something like that is you have to understand what your priority in life is then. I know that it's so easy for me to say, go follow your dreams. But at the same time, it has to make sense because we do live in a world that requires some form of exchange for something. And so it has to make sense for me in both ways. If this business didn't make sense for me commercially as much as it means creatively, I don't think I would be pursuing it. I think all of it is in great balance. Maybe that's the Hong Kong in me. It's like I can't, even creative has to mean some form of, commerce. But that being said, have other passions. I mean, I do so many things that are just because they make me feel great about myself. I think there's so many hours in the days, and if there's not so many hours in the days, so many days in the week.
Yeah.
So if not Monday to Friday, make sure you're investing in other ways to express yourself in the time that you're given. And I think that's always a great way to balance things out. I think just having a healthy mind and body and whatever that requires, whether it's physical, whether it's going out and painting outside in the water, do that. I think, and try different things. I think people stop at trying different things. People get very comfortable trying the same thing. But, we age slower when we try new things because we slow down time. Every time we try something new, we slow down time because it's new to us.
Right.
And that's a great way to then look back and see that you've done so many things and that you've just not become a rat race or a hamster in the scheme of life.
How do you differentiate between a passion that's a passion or a passion that you can monetize? And I would say that with a little context that there's so many people that they think of like the dream life, which is just, follow what you're passionate about and turn it into a business.
Yeah.
I think it's not a universal truth that something you're passionate about is the thing you should monetize. And I'm just asking because you do so many different things. I'm curious on your take on that. How do you differentiate what should be or what could be monetized versus what could be just enjoyed?
I look at time, how I manage my time, because I think time versus what I'm getting back, and it doesn't always have to be monetary, right? So again, there are certain passions of mine that I've turned into some form of exchange. And then there are some things that I do that are purely to strengthen my creative abilities to do something. I think people think two are very different things, but if I didn't have the opportunity to be creative in other ways, I don't think I can stay as inspired
I see.
in this way. So a lot of people think like wellness and your day-to-day life or your business or your ability to be a founder are two different things. But I actually think if you're not expressing yourself creatively, you are possibly not working on yourself to expand also in other areas of your life, and vice versa. And so think of it as an extension to what you're doing. So if I today go watch a fabulous movie and I get inspired by an artist and I go and dive into that artist and then I get inspired by something they've done and then I use it in my next collection, that wouldn't have happened if I expressed myself in other ways. And I think it doesn't always have to be, and sometimes it's just a break is always great. Like when I'm designing or when I'm, let's say I sometimes not only just jewelry, I'll work on giving our website a facelift. Now I'm staring at this website for a whole week and I just feel like I've hit rock bottom with stability I can. Sometimes taking a step back and just going for a run or going to paint something or just watching a comedy show so that my mind takes a break can sometimes help whatever my creative process is at work.
Yeah.
So I think two are not different, but actually intertwined, and start feeling that, stop feeling guilty about taking that time to expressing yourself in other ways.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I went for a hike. Well, call it a hike, I don't know, but I walked from like the harbor to just basically all the way up
Yeah.
to try to get a sunset view.
I saw that. It looked really nice.
Yeah, that was literally the one little peak that I had that wasn't covered by buildings.
Yeah.
I'm shocked at how high the buildings go here.
It has
It's
some of the
crazy.
highest number of skyscrapers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on that walk, I got so many ideas for my business, but it had nothing to do with business, right? It was just like
or like asking asking yourself some questions and then being curious of, hey, in the past I've interviewed this person, I wonder what their take on this would be. Or I think expressing yourself in so many ways only makes you more of a bigger person. And also like learning. So let's say if I'm out and I learn about other cultures, let's say I want to expand into new regions, I need to go out and understand what I'm dealing with. And I can only do that when I'm open-minded to these cultures.
Yeah. So there's a podcast about Taoism. It's just like Taoism teachings, I think.
Yeah.
I don't really know the point of it. But I was listening to one on the way back on my walk yesterday, and it was all about simplicity in your life. And so it's pretty similar to what you were talking about, where actually having less in your life allows you to have more because you're more concentrated in what you're doing, and therefore you can extract more meaning, more data, more information, more experience out of it.
Agreed.
So many of us, we try to pack everything in as
To
much
like
as
one,
possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable.
No, well, you don't appreciate all the little things, right? It's just here, then there, then there, then there, then there.
And you know what happens in that process? You become so used to it that when you want to go back and just minimize, maybe it doesn't feel as eventful in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then you ask yourself, and it's so hard to then go back to your old ways.
Yeah.
So much of it is practice. I'm Jain by religion. So Jainism is like Jainism. That's the religion. Jain, Jain.
Oh, I've
And
never heard of that. Is that
it's a form of an Indian religion,
interesting?
and it's very similar to Buddhism.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't think I'm the best Jain, but I'm a good Jain. And
Top 1% Jane.
and some of the teachings I love is we constantly we say no evil, don't get involved yourself in something that necessarily upsets someone. The purer you live, the more better you can sleep at night, the more simpler your mind is. Yeah.
Interesting.
And more. There's so much more to it. But some of the teachings that definitely inspire me or stay with me.
You're not married?
I'm not married. I have been married. I speak very little about relationships. And it's just in general, out of respect for the people I've been in relationships with.
Yeah.
And I also just, so much of my work life is online and just the things I do. I like to keep that part of me quite private.
Yeah.
As much as I can keep it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I can tell you a general learning from them.
What did you learn, I guess, from that? Was that a while ago? Was that recent?
My marriage was, I was married from 23 to 28. For anyone these days, please take your time, get to know what your future looks like. And, there's not this huge rush that people put their pressure on themselves for it. And I think that the conversation is becoming more and more apparent, right?
Yeah.
And, but if it feels right, it feels right. And, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. We were not the right fit for each other, and that's okay. Yeah. As long as we, realized that and didn't really hurt each other in the long term. Yeah. And I'm so lucky that I have that amicable relationship.
With that person?
With that person. And as for relationships, it's not, for me, it's not the easiest part of my life. Yeah. I think I find other aspects of my life much easier. I don't really feel the need to force it upon myself. Mm-hmm. I generally am a very happy person. I've come to the conclusion that my soulmate is my one best friend that I have, that I absolutely love. And she and her husband and her family I love them, and it doesn't have to be romantic. It has to be someone who actually is there for you, soul to soul, not the usual generic romantic that we're used to. Yeah. Also have such an amazing girlfriends that are sisters to me. I have so many great guy friends that just look out for me. I have so many cousins that are there for me and created this community around each other. So I don't feel like it's not a negative, it's not an emotional thing for me.
How do you feel about marriage now? Like, you would, if
I
you
love
found
it.
the right person, you'd still...
I think it's great. I think marriage is really wonderful if two people can support each other and help live out each other's dreams.
So you're still hopeful?
Oh, yeah. I live my life knowing that I am very much answering to myself right now. And again, I'm not like one way or the other. I'm not against the entire notion. Yep. I am not necessarily waking up with the idea, with that notion in my head every day. I think life just happens to you and you enjoy every day. Yeah. I'm so privileged in the things that I have that I don't necessarily feel unprivileged in the things I don't.
Yeah. But you've, in between no longer being married and today, you've dated?
I've dated.
So you understand the dating landscape in a sense, like you've experienced that in a sense?
Yeah.
I'm curious your take on problems with today's dating world, and I say that with more context of so hard for so many people to find somebody that, one, they're going to stick with, and two, that has the values that they're looking for. I'm curious on...
Well, you kind of answered it, right? No, but you've kind of answered that already, right? It's about two people having the same values, having the same goals. They don't have to have the exact same goal, but the idea that, where do you want to live or how they want to raise their children or how, but it's so hard. It's so hard. And I understand that, people that make it, I have such amazing couples around me that inspire me every day. And sometimes I don't see some people in the best version of themselves in the relationship. And, a lot of people are realizing a lot sooner than later. Yeah. So I'm glad that is happening. But do it if it feels right to you. Work out. Understand. I think the one thing my family has taught me, what experience has taught me, and what the things around me teach me, your partner isn't someone who's there to complete you. You complete you. You will love yourself the most that you'll ever love yourself. Your partner is there to elevate you, to be in each other's life for support, for friendship, for, love, for hugs, for kisses. Yeah. But if you are going to sit there and think you are going to become one person, that's possibly a sign of you having to figure yourself out first. And I don't think that should be your motivation behind marriage or a relationship. I think marriage and relationships thrive when two people feel so supported by each other, but they don't necessarily feel like, I always say in a relationship, even if you can bring 10% on the day itself and you bring 10%, that's 100%. Yeah. So bring whatever version of the 100% is, and then I think the probability is in your favor. But again, this is from experiences in the past and the successful relationships I see.
My last question for you. So you filled out our journal.
Yeah.
So do you journal in general?
I like journaling. I don't journal as often as I would like, but I love it.
Yeah.
I do think I find so much gratitude and so much regulation in journaling. I feel like I can bring my emotions onto paper, and there's just something so real about writing on a piece of paper.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on this one? I'm just curious. Like I always like asking for feedback or anything.
My thoughts on this one.
Yeah.
What's on my mind today?
I'm just curious also on your thoughts like of the structure of it. Like was it
I kind of just said what came to my mind.
enjoyable or did you enjoy the process?
I think writing is always enjoyable. It can be emotional. I said something very non-emotional, and then I said something emotional. So
You had 2 chocolate cakes yesterday.
I had 2 chocolate cakes. This is my answer to my yesterday's highlight. I got to have 2 chocolate cakes yesterday, and so that was exciting.
Yeah.
Because, I tried to eat clean, and so I kind of let self-indulge, and it was a good day.
Yeah.
It was a highlight.
Yeah.
and then I went and worked out in the evening, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
That's amazing.
And then what I'm grateful for today is to be safe because of what is going on in the world.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm very grateful that, and the conversation comes up quite a bit these days, is that, we're in a safe city, you're in a safe city, and that I am loved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on the second half. I'm the over 5. You've asked to rate certain aspects out of 10, and I'm between 7 to 8 today.
Mm-hmm.
Because look at it, what a beautiful day. And I got to self-reflect with this interview.
Yeah.
And the whys behind the whys is always my curiosity.
I'd love for you to share that one piece of advice that you stuck in there on the edge.
Oh,
You can tell us what you wrote and then why that's what you wrote.
So I have a lot of fun mantras I live by, like you don't ask, you don't get, you miss every shot you don't take. But more so recently, I've been saying to myself is, it's not that serious. Trust the process. It's serious. I understand it feels serious, but please take a breather, go for a walk, ask yourself, maybe make a list, maybe make a journal entry, and then understand if it's as serious as you think it is. Is it your cycle that's telling you it's serious? Is it that a person's put it in your mind that's telling you it's serious? Have you been influenced in ways that you can't see?
Mm-hmm.
So I think just trust the process, take a breather. It's not that serious.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.